Hey everybody, got the G-Man here, and I'm here with my 30 days of parts, and I am on tip number 9. So if you've been following along for the previous 8, this is going to be tip number 9. And here's what I'm going to tell you. This will be the most important tip I will give most likely over all 30 of them. This is the most important thing, and today's tip is really about you. And I've been talking a lot about changing your system settings and maybe changing how you view inventory and the methodology that we've come to know and understand and adopt as a standard practice. I've been asking you to challenge those viewpoints and to maybe think about things a little bit different. But the one thing that really has to change before you can change anything else is you. You have to change. You have to look at things and look at yourself differently before you're going to be able to look at anything within your inventory differently. I can't tell you how many times I've gone into a parts department and, the one thing I hear is, well, that's the way we've always done it. That's the answer to why that happens. Well, I think that's the worst answer, because if you can't tell me why it's a good idea, you can't tell me why it's efficient, or you can't tell me that we've explored 5 different ways of doing it and this way turned out to be the best and here's why, then I want to explore another opportunity. I want to explore another way of doing it because I want to grow and evolve and become more efficient and grow the business. And the only way to do that is to have that level of open-mindedness so that you're questioning pretty much everything that you do. Now, there's an old story out there, and I've used it when I teach, and I've used it when I coach managers. And I'm using it, to open your mind, to get you to challenge what the status quo is, and get you to go, wow, yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way. Because I can tell you, coaching and training and consulting and the things that I've done or doing now can be very, very difficult with somebody who has a strong belief that they're right and they don't want to adopt or even think about a new idea. So here's the story. So the story goes that the width of 2 train tracks in the United States is roughly the width of the back end of 2 horses. And the reason for that is because we adopted our standard from England, and England adopted its standard from Rome, and that Rome designed their chariots or their carts to be the width of 2 horses, the back end of 2 horses, because they would use 2 horses to drive the carts, and they wanted their gladiators, their warriors, to be behind the horse and be protected. And so that's kind of the short version of the story and how it goes. And then the idea is that imagine something that's lasted, a couple thousand years from ancient Rome, and it's made it all the way to modern United States without really changing dramatically. And now you can go online and you can look up this story and you could find people that debunk this, that say that there's no historical relevance, that they can't find any factual proof that this exists. However, the back end of 2 horses is essentially the same width as the train tracks in the United States, and that when they go back and look and they find the ruts in the road or ruts in the cobblestone of some of these ancient structures, what they find is, yeah, these carts had driven grooves in it. They're pretty much the same width. So you can say, there really is no direct connection or direct link, but you have to understand human psychology, and we have to understand that about ourselves, especially as leaders, is that what we have to understand is we are influenced by more things than just the literal things that are in front of us, the physical things that happen to us. Our subconscious is taking in information and using it to help us make decisions in a way in which sometimes we don't always perceive. So we are making decisions based on a program, right? We are programmed on how to look at things. Just think about what I said from the beginning. Well, I learned how to do this because this is what the guy before me taught me. Well, that's a program. He programmed you to think a certain way, and now you accept that with lack of other input or lack of another idea. You're accepting that as the gospel. This is just how this is how it's done. So take my train tracks example. And while there may be no direct link or factual proof that our current standard comes from that, it is pretty strange to me that it it is. That regardless of that, it still remains to be the same width. And the answer, if you read stuff online, the answer is, well, it was just coincidence or physical limitations, but they don't really have any. So basically they're leaning on coincidence. Well, what I would say is that it's influence, right? We're getting influenced by things. And what you want to do is the way you combat that is you want to recognize that that's happening. Like, do I think about this way because it's the right way to do it? Or do I think about it because it's what somebody else told me to think about? Right? And so you want to be really, really careful about how you approach things and have an open mind and eliminate the term belief from your system and have ideas about things that can be molded and can be modified and adjusted, instead of a belief that it has to be a specific way and there is no other way to do it, right? There is no modification or no compromise. So what I'm asking for you guys to do is to think about what you're doing every day in your processes, in your systems. Think about some of the things that I've talked about and ask why you do things that way, why I'm doing things that way, and try to find out the best way to go about it and really, really help to evolve your parts department and grow it into what it can be. And there are a couple of techniques that you can use to help break your bubble or help shatter what you think is possible. And one of them is what we call the 7 layers. And essentially, it's asking why 7 times for a specific question. So, why do we receipt parts in that way? And then when the answer comes out, ask why, and then why, and why, and why, 7 more times until you can really get to the root of the problem. It's a really effective strategy to use to help dig deep into what truly is driving that process. I talked a little bit about receding parts in one of my tips, and one of the reasons why we did that is because the person that did it had her own set of processes and systems that she felt like was required. And as we started to scratch at it, we realized that it wasn't. It had nothing to do with anything else in the department other than this one person dictating what that process should look like. So how many things in our departments, how many things in our lives run that way? So start to think about that. Use the 7 layers. Take these tips and use them to think differently, and maybe try to pick something out that you maybe hadn't heard of, or maybe a slight nuance that might be different than what you're doing it now. And use that as a jumping off point to try to change your department and do something really cool. I mean, I've been talking with parts managers all over the country recently, and I'm in awe of some of the things that they're doing right now that are innovative. And I'm anxious to share those things with you guys. But in order to absorb it, in order to really make this impactful, and to really, really do what I intended when I started this 30 Days of Parts, you have to start thinking about things differently. You have to start looking at the way you process information differently. You have to break that mold and really think outside the box, if I could use a euphemism. But at any rate, so that's my tip for today. Start working on yourself. Start thinking about things a little bit differently. Change yourself. Use my 7 layers technique. And I will see you next time on our next tip. Hey everybody, G-Man here. I want to say thank you for watching this video, and I hope that you got something out of it. If you did, if you got any value at all, please like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube so you can stay up to date with all the content that we're bringing out. And if you have any questions at all, or you need help with anything, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Leave a comment on Facebook or YouTube, or you can email us, Gary@jdicoaching.com, and we'll get right back to you. Thanks again.